All right, folks, it's been a while, but anyways, we're going to jump back into this and start building out some new templates. I've been thinking about the AWS IPAM solution for a while, and I thought tonight might be a good time to try it out. So I've got a simple project structure ready to go, kind of mimics what we've done in the past. Just put this in here so we knew where to start. Big deal there. And then we'll actually do some look up here. And we'll also just pull up this documentation. I've never tried this before, so I'm not 100% sure I completely understand some of the terminology, but I figure, hey, let's just work through it and see what we get. So I did find this. Where was it now? Yeah, so you can see what we're going to kind of walk through all these steps. And you can see up here how it's kind of set up and then broken down. You can, when I was reading the documentation for this, you can set this up for your entire AWS organization. But I didn't want to mess around with our organization setup, so we're just going to set it up in an individual account. So the difference here is that when you delegate, you can see down here, right, enabling IPAM for your organization, and it supports delegated administration as well. So that's pretty great. We can turn it on for all of the accounts within our organization and then delegate the administration of IP address management to a member account so that we're not having to log into the management account to do that. So when you enable this for the entire organization, well, you can manage IP addresses across the entire organization. When you enable it like we're going to do today, just within an individual AWS account, then you can only manage the IP addresses in that one account. So we're going to keep it simple today and just try it out like this. Okay. And I kind of had a quick look through some of the documentation. And to be honest, it looks relatively simple to set up. The one thing I would mention about this is if you do decide to set this up, you want to make sure you understand the pricing model. So let me actually just pull that up first. Because it's a little more expensive than I thought it would be. So if we go to the pricing page, the pricing is pretty simple to understand, just more than I thought, right? So you pay by the hour per IP address that's managed by the IPAM solution. And you can see over here the cost. Now this shouldn't cost us really anything, but you can see here that we've created a /16 CIDR, assigned it to a VPC that's going to be managed here by IPAM, and we have 5,000 IPs within that VPC. So we're charged per active IP per hour. So in this example, they're saying there's 5,000 IPs active for 30 days, 24 hours a day. You can do the math on this. It's $972. So just be careful that you understand, and this really goes for really anything you do in AWS, right? Make sure you understand the pricing model first. Hey, Kevin, welcome back. It's been a while. Sorry, I had a pretty good setup before, and it's been so long since I've streamed, I've kind of messed everything up. So if you see me keep looking down here, I've got my stream manager set up on the iPad for now. It works, but I've got a little tiny chat window, which I have to figure out how that works. So anyways, yeah, what I was saying, just be careful with the pricing of this. Okay? Wouldn't want anybody to get a bill that they weren't expecting. But it looks like, famous last words, this looks easy. So let's see what we can do. If I kind of open this up, you can see there's just a few different, what are these called again? Types that we have to worry about. And if I remember, when I looked at this, the scope here is the highest level container within an IPAM. But what we need to do first is create the IPAM. Let's try it out. Just jump right in. Sounds good, looks good. Okay, that's perfect. So, oh, haha, yeah. I don't know what I've done. I've got a little Stream Deck here, and it keeps switching off of my OBS software, and I keep losing track of how to switch my scenes back and forth. So here we go. This is PyCharm, and we're going to create. I'm watching the Stream Deck as well. Okay. We're going to add this to our repo, set my repo up already. We'll add these to our repo as well, just so everything is there. And let me just grab our standard kind of template. I just need the top of a template, so just bear with me a sec here. You would think by now these two simple lines would be burnt into my head, but never remember them. So let's get this started here. This part I always remember. We'll set up the empty parameter. We'll set up our empty resources, and we are going to need some outputs. Although I think I might put all this in a single template for the time being, just again because when I was looking briefly at the documentation, it didn't look it didn't look like it was going to be a whole bunch of pieces that we'd have to worry about. So I figure this might be the easiest way to do it. We'll see how it goes. See, my Stream Deck again is switched back. I'm just going to use this over here. Okay. I think what we need is we need Jeff to walk us through his setup again, so I can borrow from him. So our first resource that we need is just enabling IPAM. So let's do this piece here. Okay. Just rearranging the desktop a little bit. Okay, so we'll just call this IPAM. Very creative. And as I mentioned, it looks pretty simple. So for today, we're just going to put in, actually, let's do this. Wow, I've lost all my keyboard maps. It's amazing how quickly you forget this stuff. Don't even think that's what I want to do this instead. Okay, so we'll just refer to the region that we're deploying this in. And then maybe what we'll do is, we don't really need this. What it says, let me flip back over here, just looking at the docs. It says the operating regions for an IPAM. These are the AWS regions where IPAM is allowed to manage your IP addresses. And it's just a list of operating regions. It's just the region name. Okay. So that means then, okay, so I got to change the way I just did that. Because it looks like, I think we'll keep it simple for now, just to see if we can get this working. So this will just be region name. And for the time being, we'll just do this. Okay, so that's the region where we'll deploy this. And then the next thing that we need are tags. And these are just our standard tags. So set this up, we'll say key. And these are the tags that we use all the time. And I'm trying to get myself into the habit now. We're working in our demo account, and what we're thinking about doing is having almost like a cleanup script. Because what's happened is I've been teaching a lot, and we use the demo account for the teaching sessions. And invariably what happens is I go off and do something else and leave a bunch of resources running. And that costs us money. So I kind of thought what we could do is create a set of tags in here that we could use maybe in the future for some sort of automation, right? Where we could have the script run and delete things on a regular basis. So what I thought we would do is do something like this. Oops, if I could type. And then I thought training classes usually last for a couple of days. Twitch lasts for a couple of hours. So the idea is that we could run the script every day. And every night, anything tagged with CO Twitch gets deleted. And then only on like Friday nights do we delete anything with CO training. Kind of what I thought. And then I also was thinking, what if we wanted to retain something? So we would have a way to kind of override it so that, yeah, okay, you said this is for Twitch, but I want you to keep it because maybe we're going to use it for something else. I don't know. We'll see if this works or not. As far as I can tell in the documentation here, it's everything we need to define our IPAM. A description, the operating region, a set of tags. And then what it returns is a logical ID that represents the ID of the PAM that we've created. So I think for now, we will fill this with, I think we'll just say IPAM ID. And then I don't think we'll need this, but I still think this is a good idea. Export is, actually we use name here. We'll do and we'll say IPAM. Actually, we'll just call it ID. So why don't we try, oh, I need these up here. So I need, we won't put a default value there. Actually, yeah, I think we normally do. I think we just do this. And I'm going to move these values to this. I don't know if it'll like that colon in the middle there or not. And I'm just going to say loud. We'll say default is false. What else did I add? CO Twitch. You know, it might be better to do this. CO use. Default is Twitch. Right? Like that. We could cut down the tag. Why set both of them? So this becomes CO use, which is Okay, and then we have CO retain. We'll say this is false. I think that makes more sense. Okay, that's what we'll do. Ah, see, this is the problem. There I was typing away. So what I did was, instead of having CO training, CO twitch, I just said CO use, and that can have the value of twitcher training. And then we have a CO retain, which is true or false. So it just cuts down. Why set training and twitch for everything? You can just set a use instead of a couple extra tags. Okay, so that's that. And then here we'll go like, what did I call it? Just IPAM? Okay. And we'll call this Twitch IPAM for now. Get rid of all that. Tags. So we've got profile, environment. Oh, we didn't do, I put owner email, so let's set that up just so we have it. Right? And we might as well just put that here. And the other thing that we've trying to do is, what we've noticed is once you get a bunch of projects together, it's amazing how quickly you forget which repo you've put things in. So I think what we'll also do is we'll do this. We're going to put in here, what did I actually call this? It's just demo. This is essentially a reference back to where this is stored in our GitLab repo. So we're just going to say demo IPAM. Okay. So that should work there. And then we'll add this down here too. So that's all that. Now we just need to make sure that all these are populated. So that has a default value. Default, 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 default. Actually, we don't need to pass anything then. We've got everything we need. So here we can get rid of that. And we can also get rid of the capabilities line because that's only if we're deploying IAM resources, which I just copied this out of another template just to give us a starting point. So we'll do that. So let's check all this in. Right, and then we'll jump over here. And it failed. How unusual. I want to bet it's a spelling error? Format error, parameter. Ah, see. Yeah, it doesn't like, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. So let's go back over here. Now maybe what we'll do then, I like the prefix here, but that means we'd have to do like that. Maybe we follow, yeah, maybe we just, so if you look at tags that are created by AWS, it's prefixed, everything's prefixed with AWS colon and then the value. You know, let's do this. I think that'll be easier to read after the fact, outside of the fact that now we have keystrokes. Okay, so let's try it. Failed even before I was able to switch the screen. Yeah, it still doesn't like that. Well, I'm sure we've done that before. What's it say here? Format our parameter name CO uses non-alphanumeric. So let's just check something else. And maybe we'll have to do something like, maybe we'll just follow the same standard that we've already done. Like maybe we just go like this. We say right. Oh, maybe it was this. And anyways, yeah, let's do this. No, because it was complaining about parameters, not the resource section. So okay, validated this time, and it's deploying. Okay, so there's our IPAM, and this really should be, assuming again that I've typed everything properly, is never guaranteed, right? So if we go to VPC, IPAM should be down here. Maybe. I thought it was here. Oh, it's got its own page. There we go. All right, so there we go. So we've created our IPAM, and you can see that here. Okay. Let's just check to make sure this is the right one. See, we've got two created here. So let's go back over here and we can look at this. So it's 10E6. Okay, so there's IPAM. Operating regions, there's our region. There's all the tags. Okay. And then it must create a scope for you. So it's created a default public scope, a default private scope. And in this case, you can see, so you've got IPAM. If I remember the documentation, we've got IPAM at the top, and then a scope, and then a pool. So we've got public scopes and private scopes created already, both with no pools associated to them. So what we'll do, another thing that I want to do is we need a VPC. And we deleted every VPC in here. So I'm going to go to CloudFormation and we're just going to deploy an existing VPC template that we have. Okay. There we go. Wow. I don't know what happened there. So we've got a simple template that we use all the time, and we'll just say Twitch VPC, and we'll just deploy that. So this will give us some IPs, right? Because I think what we can do is we can associate, again, if I've read the documentation, IPAM, scope, pool, and then we associate either the VPCs with the IPAM or the other way around, and then it starts managing it. So let's go back over here. That's our first thing. So there's our IPAM. And then if we go here, sorry, jumping between too many things. So that's our first bit. So here's our scope. So this is the highest level container within IPAM. And then an IPAM contains 2 default scopes. Each scope represents the IP space for a single network. Private scope is intended for all private IP addresses. The public scope is intended for all public IP addresses. That makes sense. Scopes enable you to reuse IP addresses across multiple unconnected networks without causing IP overlap, which is always important. So we're going to try to create our own scope here. And again, it's pretty simple, right? We need a description. We need the reference to the ID of the IPAM, and then tags. Okay, so we'll say, we'll call this, again, scope. And this depends on, I know we're deploying these independently for like, you know, bit by bit as we build it out, but you can imagine that once we get this template working, we're going to deploy it. We want to make sure that the IPAM resource exists before we try to associate a scope with it. So that's what that's for. And we're just going to say description. What did we put in here? Okay. And then we need IPAM ID, which should just, again, be the same as what we did in the output. So we can just say IPAM. And then tags. So we'll just borrow all of these. Right, and that's it. And what output comes out of our scope? So we get the scope ID. Actually, I'm going to change this name a little bit. We're gonna do this. We're gonna say custom private scope. Okay, just in case we want to create anything else later on, we'll do that. And then down here, we'll just add it. And for now, again, I don't even know if we'll use any of this, just because it looks like I can put this all in one template, and at least for our demo here, be pretty simple. We'll say private scope ID. Okay. Oh, I just did it again. Ah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to fix my little. Here, this is what I did. You were looking at the EverFun documentation. I just created this custom private scope here, and all you have to do is just associate it to your IPAM, and then put the same tags on it. I just created the default output here for getting our scope ID. So now, didn't like something. Custom private scope in the outputs. Oh, I must have a typo there. Oh yeah, look, it's supposed to just be this, not ID. Let's see. Okay, so that's pretty easy. Which should, there's our VPC all built, so we'll get that associated with this somehow. So here we're just modifying the description of our IPAM and then adding our scope. I don't know. I wonder how at some point when we get a little further along, like how do I think you associate your VPC with a particular scope is how it works. And then it manages the IPs. Okay, so that worked. So now here's our IPAM. And it has, there's the defaults. And now we have 3 scopes. How do I look at my scopes over here? Maybe? There we go. Okay. So these are our 2 defaults, and there's our custom one. So maybe what we'll do is I'm going to take all of this just to kind of mimic what's there by default. We'll say custom public scope. And let's say we'll modify this so we can tell them apart. I don't know. Do that, and then we'll change this to public. Okay, I'm not gonna commit that because that feels pretty easy. So hopefully I didn't do any typos in there. So now we have our IPAM and we have our 2 scopes. So let's see what we got to do next. All right, so there's our scope. The next thing is a pool, and this is where we assign the IP range that we want to associate, I'm assuming, to our scope. So let's see here. It's a pool is a collection of contiguous IP addresses. Pools enable you to organize your IP addresses according to routing and security needs. For example, if you have a separate routing and security need for development and production, you create a pool for each. Makes sense. So why don't we do, well, maybe we'll just create a single, no, we'll create 2 pools just to see how it works. Okay, so let's build this. See, now we're starting to get into where maybe, wrong window again, maybe we could start breaking these into different templates, maybe. I don't know. So let's do this. We're going to create, let's go this. We'll call it development pool, and this will be the 10.0.0.0/8 pool. And then we're going to create we'll call it a sandbox pool. Just make it up. And we'll make that a C. So we'll make it a 192.168 1.0/24, I think it is, something like that. We'll look up the ranges. I always forget them. So, all right. Address family is first, and we want to make that IPv4. Actually, let's go through the doc together and just see first what we're going to do. So address family is required. We're going to use IPv4. This is not required, but it's the default net mask length for allocations added to the pool. If, for example, the CIDR assigned to the pool is 10.0.0.8 and you enter a 16, then your allocation is a 16. Okay. I'm going to keep this as simple as we can to get started. So we'll just, if it's not required, we're going to look at it, but we're not going to add it for now. Unless in here the update says something like, requires replacement or something, and we'll see if we can figure out how it should look. Oops, go back here. Okay, what did I do? Let's refresh. There, we lost my little view. Okay, so we've decided we won't worry about that. Allocation mask net max nest wow. Yeah, okay. Also not required. Doesn't require an update. So we'll leave that. There's our minimum net mask. We're going to leave that as well. It's funny. I updated OBS today to the latest version of OBS. And on the OBS screen, you can probably see this on the stream. OBS is moving. My browser is not. Remember how I said, oh, this is weird? Like something's happened here? The browser's locked, but OBS looks okay. And I remember reading today about, I might downgrade to the previous version again. Maybe I was a little too bleeding edge here. I did that because I was having problems with virtual cameras in Zoom. So I thought, oh, well, maybe if I go to the newer version, it'll fix it. It actually made my virtual camera worse. And now it also seems to be hanging up the browser and stuff. So that's weird. Okay, so we won't worry about our minimum net mask length. These are the tags that are required for resources that use CIDRs from the IPAM pool. Okay. Resources that do not have these tags will not be allowed to allocate space from the pool. Okay. If the resources have their tags changed after they have allocated space, or if the allocation tag requirements are changed, the resource may be marked as non-compliant. Also not required. Also, if we wanted to add it later, we don't have to worry about interruptions, so we'll leave that. Auto import. Continuously look for resources within the CIDR range and automatically import them as an allocation. A locale must be set on the pool for this feature to work. This seems, what's the default value for this? This I think we should set to true. Right? Like, wonder how it works if you say don't auto import these. Does it say here? I think we should edit this. We add this one. So let's go over here. And it's auto import true. Makes sense, right? I think. AWS service limits which service in AWS the pool can be used. EC2, for example, allows, and the only allowed value is EC2. So do we care then? I'm going to leave that one out for now. We need a description. So you can probably imagine where the description's going to look. I already forget what we called these. Whoops. A demo public. This is a demo IP pool. IPAM pool. Very creative. Very creative. There's our description. Okay, and now we need the IPAM scope ID, which would make a lot of sense, right? So now we have to refer to the scope we want to associate this pool with. And we were basically saying, this is our development pool. So I'm going to associate that to our custom private scope. Okay. And we'll say IPAM scope ID is ref custom private scope. Okay. So far, so good. Our locale. The locale is the AWS region where you want to make an IPAM pool available for allocations. Only resources in the same region as the locale of the pool can get IP addresses from the pool. You can only allocate a CIDR for a VPC, for example, for an IPAM pool that shares the locale as the VPC's region. Okay. Once you choose a locale for the pool, you cannot modify it. Ooh. If you choose an AWS region for locale that has not been configured as an operating region, okay, so we only put a single region as an operating region if we go back over here. Right, when we created IPAM, we said region name is CA Central. So I think just to keep this relatively logical, I'm going to do this, and it's just a string, so we'll double check the formatting of this, but I bet you it's just going to be that. Which, I shouldn't be hard coding this stuff, right? I should be doing this. Feels sort of out of sorts tonight. There we go. I think that's the right format for that. Okay, so that's our locale. Information about the CIDRs provisioned for an IPAM pool. We might have to look this up in the documentation because I'm not quite sure. So you create a pool, but here's an IPAM allocation. Let's have a look at this. So this is a CIDR assignment from an IPAM pool to another resource or IPAM pool. That one I'm not sure about. I think I'm going to leave that off. I think I'm going to leave it out of here. So this provision CIDRs. I think what we can do is we can either provision the ranges here or use the IPAM allocation to say, hey, I want to take this range and assign it to the pool. So I think I'm gonna try it in the IPAM allocation. Okay, so now let's go down here. Source IPAM pool ID. Sorry, folks. Source IPAM pool ID, the ID of the source IPAM pool. You can use this to create an IPAM pool with an existing source pool. We're not doing that, so we don't have to worry about it. And then tags. Okay. Let's go like this. Right. Again, I think I'm just going to deploy it like this. We can just sort of go step by step and see what it does. Oh, sorry, Kevin, I missed it. Public or private? This, yeah, it's a good point. I think in this case, the reason I'm hesitating is because, okay, you deploy a VPC, right? And you use the VPC. Somehow we're going to associate the VPC with one of these pools. Well, really, a VPC is going to be a mix of most likely public and private IP addresses, right? So within our little demo VPC here, I have EC2 instances that are private, and then I might have EC2 instances that are public, I guess, in theory. The interesting thing, though, is if we go back over here, remember up here we said limits which service in AWS that the pool can be used in. EC2, for example, allows users to use the IP space for elastic IP addresses and VPCs. I think that means pretty much anything we deploy within the VPC, including load balancers, databases, all that kind of stuff would be included in this pool. But yeah, I'm not quite sure about the public or private thing. I don't know. Let's see what it does, and we can go from there. I need a drink. Just give me a sec. All right. Nothing like learning how this stuff works on the fly. All right, so we had pushed that into here. Let's see what happened. Imagine that. What doesn't it like this time? Invalid address family. Address family. So what doesn't it like? address family. Oh, just look what I did. Can you see what I did? It helps if you type properties. Yeah, push that in there. And then we actually could do this again, right? We could do, I still don't have this right. Type, wow. Let's just forget half of the stuff we need and just fingers crossed, let's see if it works. One of those days. So we're going to say depends on, and in this case, it depends on, we're associating it with this, right? So we're going to make, again, since we're doing this as stages, it really doesn't matter. But this way, if we deploy it from scratch, all right. Oh, sorry, I did it again. Here's the you know what would be great is if I could configure these as scenes, and OBS was smart enough that if I clicked on an application that was tied to one of my scenes, it just switched automatically. So what I did was somehow I managed to forget to add this. Okay, the type definition, I just had development pool with no type definition. And then I also didn't have properties. So yeah, I wonder why it didn't work. And then I also I added the depends on thing. Okay. So now let me make sure we're on the right place. Like active window. Yeah, you got it. Maybe there is a way to do that. I don't stream enough to know how this all works. Okay, another failure. Unresolved dependencies, AWS. I knew that I didn't have that correct. So let's go and look at this. So that is a pseudo parameter that, again, you would think by this point I would remember how to do that, since I use it all the time. So see, there's a whole bunch of different pseudo parameters. And I just want AWS region. And you can see, oh, you know what I did? Oh man. I switch between like subs. So this is the sub structure for this. Since I'm using a ref here, I really should just be able to do this. Just like they're showing it like that in the documentation. No, they're not. I think I'm going to put this in a single quote like that. I don't know what's going on with my brain tonight. I don't think that's how you spell pseudo either. I don't know. EU, right? PSEU. Yeah, okay. So let's go back over here. Okay, there we go. Okay, and then we can go back over here to CloudFormation. Go. So again, we're in this case, we're just modifying the description on here. And then that's our public scope. And then we've got our development pool. That's our actual pool. Oh, look at that. It just froze up again. There we go. Yeah, I think I'm going to downgrade to the previous version of this. Felt a little more stable earlier today than it does now. Okay, so there's our public scope created. We updated our private scope, changed its description. And there's our pool. So okay, here's our scopes. Here are our pools. Okay, so now, there we go. So there's our pool that's associated with our private scope, right? So there's our pool count. I'm not sure I'm really a fan of this console. I know this is a new service, so I'm sure they'll figure it out over time. But I find it kind of interesting how you click through different things. Right. This is nice though, the dashboard and everything. It's pretty neat. I wonder how you change. It's too bad, like, if I go scopes, can we delete these original scopes? Oh, we can. Right? Okay. Oh, okay, there we go. It's a default scope, so we're not allowed to delete a default scope. Okay, so we're creating our custom scopes here. Okay, and there's our pool. And you just got to remember what scope you're looking at. It's too bad. Can we define in here? It's too bad that you couldn't define your defaults, right? So you've got a single IPAM. This is what we created. This IPAM then has a default scope, the default public and default private scopes, and then we've created our own scopes in it. I wonder if there's really any benefit to creating your own scopes if we have these already. Like, I wonder why, what is it about the scope definition, like why you would make your own default ones? I'll have to do some more reading there. Okay, so now here's our private IPAM, and it has a pool with it. And there's our pool. So now we have to allocate IP addresses to this pool. So I would assume that once we allocate a CIDR range to this, you'll see it here, and then it'll start reporting. Okay, so let's go back over here. Actually, sorry, before we go there, so now we have our IPAM, a scope, a pool. Now we need an allocation. And here's where, okay, the CIDR you would like to allocate from the IPAM pool. If there's no default net mask, you must specify either the net mask or the CIDR, which I would normally do anyways. We'll use CIDR notation for this. And then if there's no default net mask, you can specify either the net mask length or the CIDR. Okay. Oh yeah, browser's locked again. Okay, so there's our description. We associate it to a pool. Okay, that again seems pretty easy. So we'll just do this. We'll say this time I'll remember the type definition, and then before we wonder why it didn't work. This is going to depend on our development pool. And then we say CIDR So we're going to go like this. We're just going to say the CIDR is, why don't we do this? 10.0.0.0/8. Okay, so that'll gather up. Basically, is that a really good way to do it? No, maybe we'll do this. Maybe we'll say 10.98.0.0. Trying to think of how this is going to work. because we created a VPC that is a 10, I think it's, let's go check. I think it's 1098.0016. I think that's the default that gets created here. We gotta go. Yeah, it's 1098.0016. You know, let's go have a quick look in the documentation for this, because I remember them talking about like the breakdown, the IPAM, the pool, and that kind of thing. So let's have a quick look. Okay, so we've created our IPAM. We did this through CloudFormation. Great. Then we created a pool. They just called it the top level pool. We called it our development pool. And we associated it to the scope that we created. All right. They're describing the pools there. And now we have to provision. Oops. Yeah, this is really bad. My browser's locked again. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we have to provision a CIDR to the top level pool. And they're going to do 10.0.0.0/8. And then you see what they do here is they create a regional pool with a CIDR sourced. So IPAM pool, these are, okay, so they're provisioning the IPAM pool here, and then they are creating an IPAM pool. So when you create an IPAM pool, the pool belongs to the region of the IPAM by default. And that's what so we already have a pool. Yeah, we created what we called our development pool. So I think what they're doing here is they're just showing you this separate. So here they're creating a top level pool in a particular region with this CIDR range associated to it. And then down here, they're just showing you how to create a regional pool sourced from the top level pool. Right, so region here, scope, that's that source command that we saw in the documentation. And in this case, we're associating this to a different region as well. So step 5, we're not going to do because we're just going to do this. Okay. Provision a CIDR. And then they're saying 10. Okay. So I think what we'll do is we will go sort of, we're going to make this right, just like they did in the example, 10.0.0.0/8. And then where's my, okay, so we're just going to call this I'm going to get rid of the VPC because I'm not sure if we're actually allocating the VPC at this point, or we're just basically saying we're going to allocate this whole range, so the 8 range, the 10.0.0.8 range, to development pool. And then we say IPAM pool ID, and we refer here to our development pool. And I think that's all we need. And what does this output? So we'll just use the ref again. When you pass the logical ID, ref returns the pool ID, allocation ID, and the CIDR. That'll be interesting to see how it structures that. So let's do that. We'll say Twitch allocation ID. All right. did it again. Man, so all I did was just these lines here. So Twitch allocation, IPAM, it depends on the development pool. We assigned the large range to it and then associated it to the development pool. And then I just added the output here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to change the way I've got this set up. So we'll go back over here. YAML not well formatted. I must have a tab issue or something. So line 137. Oh. Right, so here's our allocation. Oh, sorry, locked up again. Ah, okay. Allocation side is too big for the pool. All right, let's see what we did here. So there's our allocation, and here's our pool. How is it too big for our pool? So this relies on the scope up here. Oh, that's an interesting one. Nowhere else have we defined the size of anything. Okay, so let's go back and have a look at the documentation and see if we can sort this one out. There was another section in here that I saw. Okay, so we created two scopes, right? A top level IPAM pool. So we have IPAM with a scope with a pool. So that's what we did. Regional IPAM pool in AWS Region 2, and then a development pool, and then we allocated allocation for a VPC. Okay, so we've missed something here somewhere. They had a nice little picture in one of these when I was looking at it. Ah, here it is. So like really what we're doing here is we're saying create a pool with a /12, and then you are, what's this saying? Shows an IPAM pool hierarchy for multiple regions with a top level pool. So this is our top level pool. Each AWS regional pool has two IPAM development pools within it, one pool for pre-production and one pool for production. Okay. So our top level pool is a 10.0.0.8, which is what I thought we did. I must have messed up in the somewhere in here. So here's our development pool. So we have I think for now I'm going to get rid of this just to keep it simple. So we're just going to create okay. So we'll just get rid of that one for now. So here is our scope. So we have IPAM operating in CA1, which we're going to change to use the same that we did, the same pseudo parameter later on. So this is operating in CA Central 1. That's it. Okay. And then we create our scope. And then we create, they're just saying create a regional pool in a different region, which is fine. We're not gonna do that. So here is this is our pool. So we must have messed something up in here. Okay, so let's go back to the documentation and just see maybe what we did wrong. So IPAM is broken into a scope, which is then broken into a pool. I wonder if it's because we didn't provide some of these. Provision CIDRs. Oh, maybe we do need the provision CIDRs here. Remember how I was saying we'll just allocate the CIDRs? Maybe we need this. Information about the CIDRs provisioned, a list of provisioned CIDRs. Okay, so let's try this, because that sort of matches up with what it looks like in the documentation. So we want to go to IPAM, and we want to say in here, what was it called? Provisioned CIDRs. And then it's just is a list. And it's just CIDR. And we're going to do this. Okay, that's that top level. And now we go down here. This needs to be smaller than that. So why don't we do, you know, hold on a second. Let's do some CIDR math on this. Let me just pull up a calculator. So we said 10, 0, 0, 0, 8, right? So why don't we just do like if we broke it into 12s like this, it's a lot of IP addresses, right? If we sort of try to mimic that little diagram they had, where was that? Right, so we've got a large pool. In our case, we did a /8. And then what we could do is go down to these /12s, which is still bigger than what you can actually deploy, right? Because the largest VPC you can deploy is a /16. So what we could then do is just take like this and do it like that. Okay. So that way the entire pool has a /8, which is a lot of IPs. And then the /12 is what we assign a pool within that, or sorry, we allocate the 12 to our Twitch project, let's call it, right? So actually, maybe we'll do this project allocation. Demo. Okay. I don't know if that's what they're after or not, but sort of makes sense. Asked. Not quite what we're after. Modified IP ranges added to IPAM. All right, let's try that again. Back over here. We'll leave our We'll leave our subnet calculator here because I have a feeling we might come back to that. Man, have we actually done a deploy yet where when I change the template and hit submit, it actually worked? I don't think we have. I think every time we've had to do this. Custom public scope. Oh, yeah. That's because I removed this, right? So, okay. What doesn't it like now? Unresolved dependencies. Oh, because I changed that other name too. That's this, right? So I called this project allocation. So we got to switch it down here too. Third time's a charm. Okay, let's go back over here. Okay, so that's the public scope that we deleted. Fine, that's fine. Then we are modifying our development pool because we're changing. I think we changed the. What did we change in the development pool? I just want to make sure that I understand what I'm doing here. Oh yeah, we added the provision siders, right? And we said put a /8, 10/8 in our development pool. Okay, that makes sense. And then we're trying to add the allocation for our Twitch project. So let's execute that. Oh, no, it's still working. Okay. Okay, there we go. And there we go. Mystery solved, right? So you have to add, you have to put those, what was it called again? Provision siders. So you have to associate those top level siders to your pool. And then within this larger range, we can allocate other ranges, smaller ranges. And now I'm thinking, I don't know if this will work or not, but since we already have that VPC deployed, I wonder if it will say, well, you've got some IPs allocated there. I don't know. So let's go over and have a look at what we've created here. All right. So we've got a single IPAM, 3 scopes because we deleted that one scope. So the 2 defaults in our new one, which has a single pool. There we go. Okay. Modify complete. Oh, we have 16 million IP addresses. Okay, great. There we go. So allocated to pools, assigned to resources. So we do have some stuff assigned to resources, and then a whole bunch of things available. We should have created a really small pool, right? Oh, I see. So, okay. So we're saying you have 16 million IPs, and you've just now, there we go. We've allocated a /12, which is 6% of those 6 million IP addresses. Oh man, the browser's really locking up now. There's our cider. There's our allocation. So these would be the resources then that exist within our scope, which we have none of. Compliancy, sharing, and then we've got our tags. All right, so then now the pool has no resource CIDRs. So what do we do next? To the documentation. When all else fails, read the documentation. So we've created our pool, we've created our top level pool, which is in the same as our regional pool. And then we've done this as well. And then we've got an allocation for a VPC. Development pool for production VPCs, development pool for non-production VPCs. Okay. 1016. I just want to see if we can get the actual create a VPC that uses, okay, here we go. Follow steps creating a VPC. Great. When you reach step to choose a CIDR, you'll have an option to choose from a pool. So we deployed this already. Okay, so let's go here. It's funny because you would think that it would pick up unmanaged CIDRs. Look at, here we go. So it did discover it, but it's unmanaged. So we can go like this. Mark all. How do we manage it? Mark all CIDRs as ignored. Unmanaged. Okay. Again, when all else fails, let's read. Oh, look at this. This is really cool then. So once we have this created, we could create a service control policy in organizations. And that service control policy could then, when anybody's trying to create a new VPC, it has to exist within the IPAM that we've created. So here's the little SCP JSON document, right? So if you try to run a create VPC or an associate VPC CIDR block, so you've got an existing VPC and you want to associate a new range of IPs to it, to any VPC, then we must make sure that the CIDR ranges exist in this pool, exist in an IPAM pool. Well, that's kind of neat. So enforce IPAM and then enforce a pool. Okay, so here it's saying, hey, you got to have this, you got to use something from IPAM. And in here, we're telling it specifically a pool that you could get your info from. That is neat. So how do we actually get what we have though? Still marked as unmanaged. Change the monitoring state. So we saw this in the management console, right? We went in, we chose the resource, we marked it as ignored or unmarked as ignored. We're so close. It's also interesting that it says we're using 37% of the IPs. Like this is 65,000 IP addresses. And oh, maybe what they're saying, okay, I get it. So these subnet ranges here have consumed 38% of the 65,000 IPs. And then we have a bunch of other stuff available. But how do I assign this to a pool? Right? Because you can see when I go into this pool, it's empty. Oh, so it's associated it to the default pool. And then I'm going to say, I wonder if this is that little part at the beginning. Move all associated CIDRs to a different scope. So yeah, we want to move them over here. Successfully sent requested transfer. It may take a few minutes. We're missing something here. Yeah, it's weird how it's not. I would have expected it to go from the default pool to here. Well, let's do this then, just to see if we can test to see if it actually, if I created a new VPC, right? So we say create VPC, VPC only. So we'll do the same thing. We'll say 1099. Now see here, IPAM allocated. Oh, that's a IPAM allocated. Oh, wait, what am I doing? Oh, up here. Doop. Sorry, I think my browser keeps getting locked up. Okay, so there we go. Net mask is a /16. Is it just gonna, what's it gonna do? Look at that. Okay, so let's create another one. Okay. So it's just going through and slicing up that larger range. And it just grabbed something. So can we modify an existing one? I don't even know what that is. What is this? Is a metric applied to resources in your virtual network to help you plan for or monitor the size of your VPC? Huh. So it calculates network address usage, the maximum number of NAU units in a single VPC. Each VPC can have up to 64,000 units. Huh. That's kind of interesting, but it doesn't have anything to do with our address solution over here. So if we now refresh this, oh, look it. Didn't we have unmanaged CIDRs before? I'm so confused as we go through all this stuff. There's so many. Maybe it did just take a little bit of time. Oops. So we have one managed CIDR range now. Oh, here we go. So this is the allocation we made, and then these are our two new guys that we put in here. Oh, look, did it pick it up? 1098 is allocated, yeah. So there you go. So it did pick up 1098 eventually, because these are the IP ranges that we used, right? 1098.0016 and 1099, I think it picked up. And then if we go over here, did it pick up a 96 as well, right? Right here, yeah. So there's the 96. And then in here, in the /15, we've taken all of that because we ended up with 98 and 99. So it just took a little bit of time. Patience is a virtue, as they say, right? Sorry, my browser is really not happy at this point. There we go. So I wonder, did we even need to create that allocation? So we did the work in, you know what I'm wondering? I wonder if, so we created this allocation, and then obviously nothing's associated to it, so we don't have any resources or anything. I almost wonder if we didn't need that allocation, or if we had have gone in like over here, this allocation matched up 1098.0016, it would have shown there maybe. Maybe that's what it is. We'll have to, I'll rip this down and try it again and see, but I think we have this working. So now this is our VPC with stuff in it, which, oh, this is pretty slick. So these are all of the subnets that we've created out of the total of 65,000 IPs. And then it's visualizing here for us what's been allocated and what's free. That's our overall CIDR. There's our subnet allocation. Shows you the IP usage across all of these, which is slightly interesting. See, this is again where I'll have to look in the documentation, because we do have a few things deployed in here. We have, and maybe it just takes some time, we have Oh, what do we have in here? We have, what are they called? NAT gateways deployed. And those NAT gateways would be deployed in these two public subnets. We'll double check that. Yeah, I wonder, compliance status determined using the latest allocation settings for your pools. Okay. Well, that's pretty cool, actually. I like the visualization of what you've used. And then this here, you know, where you can see what you've got left over. It's pretty slick. So let's go and do one last thing and then we'll call it a day. So let's go over to EC2 and we're just going to launch an instance. Doesn't really matter. Don't care about any of this. I just wanted, yeah, okay, so I'm going to dump it into the Twitch VPC. I won't put it in the public subnet. We'll put it in the private subnet. Again, none of this matters. Okay, we'll remove all the rules and we'll just launch it. So that will consume an IP, because if we go over here to the VPC console and we select our VPC, it's this one. We go to subnets. So these public subnets are /21s, which would be, so a /20 is what, 4,096 IP addresses? So a /20 would be, oh boy. Which way am I going? I'm making this smaller. Yeah. So 4,096 to 2,048. Yeah, and then Amazon reserves 5, so that gets us 2,043, and you can see we've already consumed an IP in here. So either it doesn't pick up the non-EC2 IP addresses, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, right? Because you're consuming those IPs. Now, yeah, and this is probably where we deployed that EC2 instance, because it's one less IP than this. Okay, so let's go back over here. Okay, so there you go. It looks like it just takes a little bit of time. So these are our other test VPCs. Yeah, it must just take a little bit of time. Well, that's still pretty cool. I'm going to leave this and let it run for a bit and just see what happens here. Like, will it eventually say, like in these CIDR ranges here, that I would suspect what should happen, unless it's looking for a particular tag or something like that, that inside, sorry, yeah, there we go. Inside one of these private subnets, whichever one I dumped that EC2 instance into, it should show this as IP usage of 1, right? Yeah, that's pretty cool. If we go back over here, so this is what we looked at already because we were in the dashboard screen. Oh, I always forget this. We gotta change this to here. Non-overlapping CIDRs. We have a single pool associated to this scope. 3 managed, 3 compliance, 3 non-overlapping. And there you go. So we're starting to see things get mapped. And our pool assignment has gone up. It's using a whopping 7%. So that maybe it's just taking a little bit of time. It's too bad these didn't give you drop downs. Yeah, that hasn't updated yet, so that must just take a little bit more time because it's still saying unmanaged here, but in the other screen it says managed. Yeah, that's pretty slick. It'd be great if we could just see that one little piece come up and say it's got an IP address. But it did say something about tagging, right? So I wonder if percent assigned, percent allocated, compliant. So these are the same dashboards that we see on the main screen. That's our overall utilization. So this is our main pool, the 10.00/8, and then the actual VPCs within it. I just want to see that change. Well, anyways, pretty good. We got it working through CloudFormation. I think there's obviously some things to be tweaked here a little bit, but that's pretty neat. Especially you can imagine in larger deployments, or where you have a lot of accounts where you want to manage the CIDR ranges for all of those accounts. So now I can envision like you could, if we go back over to our documentation and we go back up here, or remember that step here where we said, right, this little diagram here. So now you could say like, you could envision a large pool for all of AWS. And what you could do here is just make sure that you have no overlap between AWS and something on-prem, because you're going to basically allocate this 10.0.0.0/12 to AWS, subdivide it across multiple regions, and then subdivide those into what you want to use for your different environments, whether you're doing environments like this or like what we've got down here, allocating by business units, then by regions, then by, it looks like maybe projects that have, pre-prod and prod. This is kind of cool. And then once you could have that in your organization account, you would be able to see everything across your entire AWS environment. Pretty slick. Pretty slick. So I think we'll leave it there for the night. It's good to kind of get back into the groove of it. I'm going to have to downgrade a couple pieces of software here to make this work a little better. But yeah, let's call it here. Thanks for stopping by. And we're going to try to get back into the groove of this, doing this weekly. So we'll see you next week. Bye for now.